Hello and happy IDAHOBIT everyone! My name is Tessa and my pronouns are she, her.
My name's Wild and I use they, them pronouns.
And we are from -18, one of Australia's leading LGBTQIA+ charities. For the past 25 years, we have been creating life-affirming events, building a more inclusive country for our community through education, and driving awareness campaigns.
Today, we're here to talk about one of those campaigns, IDAHOBIT, the International Day Against LGBTQIA+ Discrimination. But before we get into things, we'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we are on today, and paying our respects to elders past and present. This always was, and always will be, Aboriginal land.
Thank you so much for that, Wild. Now, if you're new to IDAHOBIT, you might be wondering, what's this all about? IDAHOBIT is the International Day Against LGBTQIA+ Discrimination. And it's our day to go rainbow to build LGBTQIA+ inclusion in the pursuit of equity.
IDAHOBIT is held on May 17, the anniversary of when the World Health Organization removed homosexuality from the International Classification of Diseases in 1990. So while we absolutely celebrate this milestone and other advancements in LGBTQIA+ inclusion since then, the unfortunate reality is that these are all too recent in our history.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, up until 1997, it was still illegal to be gay in some parts of Australia. And it wasn't until 2017 when people of the same gender were even able to be married. So while IDAHOBIT is a day to celebrate the advancements that we've made in terms of LGBTQIA+ equality, it's also our day to acknowledge the discrimination that LGBTQIA+ people continue to face to this day.
So, you've heard us use this term LGBTQIA+ a few times already, and for those of you who are new to it all, LGBTQIA+ stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer or questioning, intersex, asexual or aromantic, with the plus at the end indicating lots of other identities in the community as well.
Now, don't get me wrong, it can be a bit of a mouthful at first, but I promise it gets easier the more that you say it. In its simplest form, we use the LGBTQIA+ acronym whenever we're talking about someone who has a diverse experience regarding their sexuality, their gender identity, or their physical sex.
So Tessa, why would we talk about these topics at work?
Well, these parts of ourselves often influence the way that we experience everyday life, and that's not just for LGBTQIA+ people. So I'll give you an example. Our sexuality often refers to the people that we do or do not have relationships with. And it's a pretty normal thing to talk about your partner at work or to share these parts of yourself in the conversations that you have. But in addition to that, our gender or our physical sex can influence the facilities that we use and the way that people respond to us. So as an example, for myself, I use the women's bathrooms and I go by she, her pronouns. Now, if you're having to hide these parts of yourself, that can be pretty isolating, but especially so if you were doing that out of a way of trying to protect yourself from experiencing discrimination. And unfortunately, the reality of LGBTQIA+ discrimination, even in Australia, is all too real.
2 in 3 LGBTQIA+ youth experience abuse due to their identity. And 1 in 3 LGBTQIA+ Australians has experienced verbal abuse in just the past 12 months. And while harassment most commonly occurs in public or at work, LGBTQIA+ discrimination and inequality are also enshrined in Australian law and practice, even today. In Australia, for example, LGBTQIA+ people can be discriminated against by religious organisations. This could look like LGBTQIA+ students or teachers being expelled from religious schools. Many intersex people face medical procedures being performed on their bodies to modify their sex characteristics without their consent. And many trans and gender diverse folk face unnecessary barriers to updating their birth certificates in many states in Australia. And this then leads to having issues updating other legal documents as well. And these are just some of the issues that LGBTQIA+ people face in Australia today that groups like Equality Australia are really working to remedy.
So just how many people are we talking about here? What percentage of the population is LGBTQIA+?
It's a really common question, Tessa. So studies suggest a range from about 10% of the general population up to almost 20% of young people. But we don't really have any population-wide studies that can give us a really accurate answer. In fact, no census has ever asked Australians questions about sexual orientation or intersex variations or whether people are trans or gender diverse.
And so this data is then used to inform legislation and policy, right? So if we're excluded from that, then LGBTQIA+ people are rendered all but invisible. Now, you can actually sign a petition to include LGBTQIA+ people in the 2026 Australian census via Equality Australia or by following the hashtag #CountUsIn2026.
So, imagine a world where you don't really see yourself represented, where you can't safely be yourself at work, or where you're invisible in government data collection. This is exactly how the pride flag came to be. So in the 70s, in the US, where not very many people were visibly queer, an activist named Gilbert Baker designed the rainbow pride flag as a way for people to bravely show their identity, to stand up and be counted.
That's absolutely right. And these days, the rainbow flag has become a beacon for inclusion and allyship. It's used around the world to change laws, create visibility, and build safety for people who haven't always had this. Now, that's why on days like IDAHOBIT, we go rainbow and we join millions of people around the world building LGBTQIA+ inclusion every single day. It really is uplifting to be part of such a global movement.
Now, standing against discrimination on an international level might seem like a really daunting task, but we know that building LGBTQIA+ inclusion doesn't always have to be on that scale. We've met with hundreds of workplaces across Australia who are on their own journeys of LGBTQA+ inclusion. And so we wanted to use today to share with you a few of the ways that we've seen can help build inclusive cultures at work. So, strategy number 1 is to listen to and share the stories of LGBTQA+ people.
Now, as you've seen, we know that LGBTQIA+ people come from a wealth of different identities and backgrounds, and no two people are the same. So by listening to the stories of LGBTQIA+ people, you are going to be able to bring to life the themes of IDAHOBIT in a way that feels meaningful and connected to individual experience. Now, that being said, not all identities are as visible as others, so we'd really recommend seeking stories from the experiences of people who are intersex, people who are trans or gender diverse, and people who are bisexual. And in doing so, you might find some insights that you might not otherwise have been privy to.
Absolutely. And if you're someone who feels like they're pretty knowledgeable already about LGBTQA+ identities, then perhaps you could explore the stories of people who have intersecting identities or backgrounds that are different to your own. You could explore the stories of LGBTQA+ people who are from regional or rural areas, disabled, Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, from a diverse perspective of ages, living with HIV, neurodiverse, or from diverse cultural or faith backgrounds. And that's just to name a few. Or if you want to go even deeper, engaging in professional development on a regular basis will certainly help make sure that you're up to date.
Being visible with your learnings helps other people to learn as well. And so that takes us to strategy number 2, which is to be visible yourself. Now, when you're listening to the stories of LGBTQIA+ people, you might come across a podcast, a book, a video, or maybe even a charity that really resonates with you. Now, if you do, use your voice. Share it with the people around you.
Absolutely. You could share it on your social media or with your colleagues via Yammer or Slack or your intranet. You could also share and wear the rainbow flag. Even though it started as a symbol of pride, it's absolutely become a beacon of allyship and inclusion, like you said, Tessa. So allies are absolutely welcome to wear rainbow items as well.
Honestly, one of my favorite go-tos is to just chuck on a rainbow lanyard with my keycard at work. But that's not the only way. I mean, you can also wear a rainbow pin or put a rainbow flag or a message of support in your email signature. Basically, what this does is it creates a signal for other people that you are someone who will respect their identity. So whether it's a customer, a client, or even a colleague that is witnessing this kind of visibility, it might be the number one thing that they need to know that they can be truly themselves with you.
The same principles apply to being visible as a team, just on a bigger scale. So strategy number 3 is be visible as a team.
And there are heaps of ways that you can signal visible inclusivity within the workplace. So whether it's putting up rainbow posters around the office or even getting a rainbow welcome sticker that you can keep at the front door of your premise. I even remember at one of my old jobs, we would have these little education cards that had information about different communities and identities that they'd keep in the break room. And I honestly reckon I learned a fair bit by just having a bit of a read while I ate my lunch.
That sounds so great.
Yeah.
And I reckon it doesn't just have to be about science and education too. At one of my old workplaces, we hosted LGBTQIA+ events and Pride nights. So visibility can definitely be really interactive and fun as well.
As incredible as visibility can be, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and we recommend further reading and professional development so you can continue to unpack these actions as a team.
No matter where you are on your LGBTQA+ inclusion journey, know that you absolutely have the power to spark change in the lives of those around you and to build a culture where everyone feels like they can truly be themselves.
So, while we celebrate how far we have come in terms of building LGBTQIA+ inclusion, we've still got more work to do, and we are so grateful to be here on this journey with you. If you would like to continue to find out more about building LGBTQIA+ inclusion or how you could go rainbow for this IDAHOBIT, make sure you check out idahobit.org.au to find out more.
Thank you so much for joining us, folks, and
happy IDAHOBIT!